Welcome to this episode of Founds It in Tech. I am your host, Mark Eckerly, and today I sit down with Zach Sims, who is the co-founder and CEO of Codeacademy. They are revolutionizing the way people can learn to write code, which is particularly relevant in today's business environment, as there is a pressing need for software engineers and computer programmers as we progress through this digital transformation. On today's episode, we discuss Codeacademy's business model and their various content offerings, which does include some free courses, Zach's thoughts on the future of the edtech space, and finally, he offers some tips to other founders that he has found to be beneficial throughout his journey. I had a great time today talking with Zach and learning about the exciting things happening at Codeacademy, and I hope you enjoy our conversation as well. Hello, everyone. Please join me in welcoming Zach Sims from Codeacademy to the show. Zach is the co-founder and CEO of the company and joins us today to talk about his background, his company Codeacademy, and some exciting things that they're working on. So welcome to today's show, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with your background and how you came about the idea of Codeacademy. I'd be really curious to know the genesis and the reasons that led you to starting this company.
Yeah, so, I started Codeacademy in 2011. I was an undergrad at Columbia studying political science. And, one of the biggest and most impactful things at the time was working for two tech startups in New York. So a company called Dropio that got sold to Facebook and a company called GroupMe that got sold to Skype. And I would say from that, really what I learned was the importance of these technical skills, things like programming, data science, design, and those things weren't being taught in colleges. And as a result, you had a lot of people that were graduating from schools and not finding jobs, and so graduating with tremendous amounts of debt. So my co-founder and I kind of saw that trend. At the same time, I was teaching myself to program and, found it super frustrating. And so we kind of saw these two things dovetail and ultimately decided, we wanted to create a way for anyone in the world to learn the skills they needed to find jobs and to connect to economic opportunity. And so we started Codeacademy in an effort to do that.
Yeah, I definitely think there's an opportunity in the marketplace for a company just like this. And I mean, you guys have been around for 10 years now or so? I think it was founded in 2011
right,
or so.
Yeah, it's been about 9.5 years.
9.5 years, yeah. And I always say if I were to go back to college, it would be for not accounting, it would be for computer engineering or software engineering or something to that effect, because it's just such a hot market out there.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think, the most important skill anyone can learn today.
Mm-hmm. And so let's jump into the company's business model, right? I know there's a couple subscription plans out there. There's even a free solution for people that want to just test out what writing code is. So can you kind of take a deep dive into the various offerings that Codeacademy has, and then a second part to that, I'd be curious to know the metrics behind the company, right? Being an online platform, this is open globally, so I'd be curious to know what the numbers are internationally as well, if that's available.
Yeah, so we're a freemium business, so we have tens of millions of learners in the U.S. at this point that learn on the platform for free. At this point, more than 45 million people that have taken courses over the past 9 years on the platform. And then we have a paid product, which is called Codeacademy Pro, which helps people around the world effectively, learn with an unlimited content library. It gives them access to a community of people like them, and then it gives them the ability to get certificates that they can use to kind of show what they've learned. At the same time, we also offer a product for businesses called Codeacademy for Business, obviously, and I think that product it takes what we've built with Codeacademy Pro and then it opens it up to companies. So we have large Fortune 500s and small businesses that are learning on the platform as well. And that's what we're trying to build with Codeacademy Pro. And so I think in sum, to your comment on metrics, tens of millions of learners that are learning for free at this point, more than 100,000 active learners and subscribers on the Codeacademy Pro platform. And we're not really disclosing the size of Codeacademy for Business at this point, but we can tell you that it's grown more than 350% over the past 12 months.
Wow, that's fantastic considering all things that happened in 2020. So just to inform everyone, if I were to be the average consumer, right, and sign up for that subscription model, become a pro user, what would I be getting out of that? What kind of content would be delivered outside of just maybe additional content or courses to learn and writing code? What would I be getting out in that model to pay for?
Yeah, so with Codeacademy Pro, you basically get access to a ton of great new courses. So we generate tons of new courses each month that we share with our learners. But really kind of what we've noticed is that, our free learners, tend to be dabblers. So they're kind of testing the waters a little bit, if you will. Whereas the pro learners tend to be the folks that are really looking for a career upgrade. So they're looking to make more money on a regular basis, whether that's by upgrading their existing career or finding a new job as well. And so we help them do that with comprehensive career paths, with community features, and with the certificates they need to demonstrate their efficacy.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a nice touch for a lot of people, and an enticing aspect. It's the community aspect, right? It's just kind of collaboration in this whole space. So that's definitely important for a lot of users, I would think.
Absolutely, yep.
So sticking with 2020 a little bit, I'd be curious to know how that compared to prior years. You said there was significant growth, 300+%. Since the company already had an existing online business model and platform, was the transition during the pandemic and COVID-19 fairly seamless? For employees, and then as far as the company's operations go, it was an overall productive year, but I'd be curious to know a little bit more of the ins and outs there and how that really impacted the company.
From a pure how did we do perspective, I think we're fortunate enough that the business itself, it was in a position to help in 2020. And so we, jumped on it and created a couple of quick initiatives. One of them, we gave away 100,000 scholarships to Codeacademy Pro to students around the world that were affected by the pandemic and they were out of school for that reason. The second thing we did is launch an initiative for people that were laid off or furloughed, giving away, 100,000 scholarships to them as well to really help as many people as possible get back to work. So I think our focus last year, was not just growing the business, but was really on helping at a time that we think was pretty difficult around the world. So that's it from a business perspective. I think from an internal perspective, it's always difficult to deal with so many sudden changes in a business. And I think for us, we're lucky that we were able to do so, with a reasonable degree of success. We've gone remote pretty quickly, obviously, as almost every company did. We've adopted a whole bunch of new norms internally, a remote operating system, a couple other things, to make sure that people know kind of what their job is and how we should have meetings, when we should have meetings, and how to keep the speed of decision making quick during that time.
Yeah, I think one thing that would be important for a lot of companies and founders to understand is what do you think worked for you when you went to that whole virtual environment? Was there anything that you noticed that stood out that you found beneficial over the last 9 months roughly, internally specifically, that kept employee morale high, mental health is one of the biggest things right now in a lot of companies. It's just people getting burnt out, possibly working from home. There's a lot of things going on. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on what has worked for you guys. Is there anything that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I think really being as explicit as possible is the biggest thing that's worked for us. So I mentioned the remote operating system thing. That really codifies everything. Everything from a common meeting hours to a decision-making framework to individual roles and meetings, and we try to document just as much as possible. Because we've managed to more than double the team since the pandemic started, and so for us, I think again that clarity has really helped the team across the board understand how to get up and running. And how to stay on the same page as well.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's really good. And yeah, like you said, being explicit, and especially with everyone working all types of hours, right? It's not really a standard 9 to 5 anymore. People are just getting work done as they can, whether it's late at night or early in the morning. So just kind of setting those expectations, having those daily calls, it's really become more and more critical in today's work environment.
100%.
So I'd be curious to get your thoughts as well on the future of this space, right? So I think this kind of falls somewhat under the umbrella of ed tech, education technology, and specifically computer programming industry, right? So where do you see the future of this? Do you expect the existing on-campus model to decrease significantly, considering all things that happened in 2020 with colleges going remote and the whole on-college campus experience kind of falling by the wayside? Is this going to be a major transition, and think this will really kickstart a new wave, or do you think things will go back to the normal, how they were pre-pandemic? I'd be curious, just because this is such an emerging industry over the last 8 to 12 years roughly. So I'd be curious to get your thoughts on what you think for the future.
No, absolutely. I think it's definitely a major growth area for online education. I think what's very clear is that a lot of these trends, they are changing, and they aren't just temporary changes. I think they're long-term changes. And in that sense, I think you can see, number one, traditional higher education will be, challenged pretty aggressively from a budgetary perspective even. I think, if we look at even in the past 12 months, what's happened to a lot of colleges, spending a ton of money trying to be, trying maybe to reopen in some cases, to be COVID compliant, et cetera. Many of them have students that are upset about paying, $50,000, $60,000 a year in order to take virtual classes. So I think you're going to see a super big shakeout at the higher ed level. And the other thing that I think we're seeing a lot this year as well is people realizing that, like, look, online education works. Zoom education might not necessarily work, but there are many people this year that are functioning, as they can and should, without going in person. And so I think this kind of, for many years, this insistence on learning in person, and that's the only way that people can learn or get job skills or find a job or go to college, is just not true, right? And so I think there's that belief will remain, and I think the skepticism of quote unquote big education, if you will, which is the traditional college industry, K-12, et cetera, will remain, because people are realizing, like, what am I spending $50,000-$60,000 for, and not getting a positive return on that.
Yeah, the cost of secondary education nowadays is just absolutely mind blowing, and students are in debt for decades after college. So kind of giving them a cost effective solution, and then they can go to the job market with a full education and degree with minimal debt, if anything, and really have that experience. It's game changing. It really is. I'd be curious, what are you guys doing from a marketing standpoint? I recently saw the announcement. You guys are working with Lolly, who's a Bitcoin rewards program that they helped. You guys are on board with them. I'd be curious from marketing, what are you guys doing to incentivize new users onto the platform? Is there anything that you guys are think is differentiating you guys from other companies in your space?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really have a focus on just, giving people the best educational experience. And that's why I think we grow from a word of mouth perspective more so than any other channel. So I think that's kind of the real thing that we focused on over the past couple of years, is how can we build a product that's so good that it markets itself. And our learners are our best advocates, whether they've gone on to start companies, gone on to make more money and do careers. And so we think, oftentimes it's not really worth providing, crazy incentives for people to sign up, because we stand by what we've built. And we think, we've built the best way for people to upskill that exists right now.
Gotcha. So even I guess recommendations that have come from customers of your platform, what have they found to be beneficial? What's their favorite part of using their platform? I'd be curious. It's almost like a selling factor, right, that you would use for new users. What have they found to be the best part? Is it the community experience?
I think it's the interactive learning experience. It's really what people say. They really appreciate the ability to learn by doing. I think in other places they commonly learn, by watching videos, by listening to long lectures. And with Codeacademy, there's a real focus on learning by doing, by building things, and I think that's what really makes people happy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would say that's probably how I learn best too, right? It's just doing it myself and learning from my own mistakes or errors, and really just putting my head down. It's funny how everyone learns in their own way, but that definitely seems to be the way that works for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think most people feel that way, and that's, I think, why we've seen success with the learning style that we have with Codeacademy.
Gotcha. So what recommendations would you have for other founders and C-suite executives in this space that are really trying to like spearhead their own startup, their own emerging technology company, right? They're hitting it from the ground up, even in today's pressing times, right, where there's some economic uncertainty in the education technology space. Any tips or tricks that you've learned over your career of starting a company from the beginning, and anything that you can pass down to other founders?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the biggest thing is to kind of know what you don't know, right? I think it becomes very easy when you're starting a company to think that you need to have the answers to everything, because you're the founder, you're the CEO of the company, and everyone needs to listen to you. And I think kind of what I've realized is that actually the most important thing to know is what you might need help on, and how to find that help as quickly as possible. And I think it took me a couple of years to grow into that understanding. And I think, we live in a technology world where people are so insistent on, being clear about what, they want to project confidence when they're going into, investor meetings, et cetera. But actually, again, the most important thing is to be very acutely aware of like what you're good at and maybe what you're less good at, and solving those. gaps as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. A mentor of mine actually told me the same thing. Is one of the most difficult parts of developing yourself is realizing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then filling those
Yep.
gaps with people that can do that job. So it's very funny you
Yeah,
say that because
it's confusing, but it's paradoxical, but effectively kind of that knowing what you don't know and demonstrating that vulnerability is actually strength. So.
Yeah, and realizing that you can't do it. That's the difficult part, just realizing it and accepting it, right?
Yep.
Great. Well, that just about wraps up today's episode with Zach. I think there's a lot of great takeaways here that you've given us today. If you'd like to learn more, you can visit codeacademy.com. Great. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode of Founded in Tech. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked it and want to hear more, you can follow us and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Founded in Tech.